And we'd like to take a quick moment to welcome our viewers from Ontario who are now joining us on CTV main network as the King and the Queen depart the Senate from where he has now delivered a historic throne speech, only the third time since Confederation, since 1867, that a sovereign, a monarch, has delivered a speech from the throne.
Sorry.
Yeah, the crowd, Omar, has really, in the last 30 minutes, just populated itself enormously. They've moved over basically from the Senate. Now they're crowded right in front of the Chateau Laurier. It's like half a block that the King and Queen have to walk to get to the tomb of the unknown soldier, where they will be laying that wreath. But the crowd is noisy. They're excited. The second the King walked out of the Senate, for example, the crowd kind of erupted into cheers and applause. They are genuinely really pumped about all of this.
And somebody who has a front row seat to all of this jubilation and this excitement is CTV's Abigail Beeman. Give us a sense, I mean, as Vassy was mentioning, Abigail, just in the past little while, that there has been a huge swell in the crowd size. What are you seeing where you are?
So, Omar, we're just having some connection issues, and I can't exactly hear your question, but I'll just set the scene for you. As you can see, I'm here by the tomb of the unknown soldier, and we know that the Governor General, as well as the Prime Minister, have already walked the short distance over from the Senate. And in the last minute and a half, I would say, we heard huge cheers from the crowd, and we understand that the King left the Senate building. So we are waiting for their Majesties to arrive here at the tomb of the unknown soldier, where they will lay a wreath. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, as part of the War Memorial here, was set up in the year 2000. So this is the 25th anniversary of that tomb, and that is what this wreath laying will commemorate. There are some other portions of the ceremony as well. We know that the last post will be played by a bugler. We see the RCMP here as well. There is much color to the ceremony, and this is another piece of this downtown Ottawa moment that is open to the public. So, of course, the hundreds of people who are here to see the King, there are many gathered on all sides of the War Memorial, or a few sides of the War Memorial as well, for those who didn't get a chance to see the King and Queen in the carriage making their way towards the Senate, hoping to get a chance to see the King now. And we're hearing some reaction in the crowd as well. So I will throw it back to you, Vassy and Omar.
Yeah, we've been hearing these spontaneous cheers as the royal couple come closer to the position that we are at. The King and Queen, taking their time not only to meet with the politicians and the dignitaries who are inside that Senate chamber not long ago, but also with the people who've gathered. And certainly in the past little while, Vassy, to your point, I mean, there has been a massive,
packed.
It is,
yeah.
a huge swell in the number of people who've gathered. And it doesn't hurt that it is just the most picture-perfect Ottawa day that you could have. Blue skies and sunny skies to experience this historic moment. And as Abigail mentioned, the royal couple will now be making their way. They're actually not that, from where they are now to the National War Memorial, it's not a huge distance at all. It's very close. And so they will be there to lay a wreath. And there's such a beautiful symmetrical shot behind us of that ceremony as it's about to get underway. And I believe we're cutting to that shot right now as people are getting ready for that moment. And this will be basically the last event that they have before the royal couple then moves on to the airport, to Hangar 11, which is, of course, the hangar where the VIPs arrive and leave from, and make their way back to the UK for a trip, by the way, that has been a whirlwind. I mean, it's been less than 24 hours that they've been on the ground in Canada, but making quite a statement in that time.
Yeah, very much so. In all of the when you look at the kind of them greeting the crowds here, it's what they did all day yesterday too. They went to a series of stops between the airport, for example, at Lansdowne, which is just that way, in the afternoon. And then they went to Rideau Hall. And all along the way, there have been Canadians who assembled. This is definitely the biggest crowd that I've seen over the last 24 hours, but the King certainly taking his time, like he did, as you pointed out, inside the Senate chamber to meet with the MPs, to shake the hands of everyone who had assembled, to do the same for the Canadians who are proudly displaying their patriotism through the flags that they're all holding at this point. Everybody kind of in order, standing politely, waiting to welcome the king and be able to, and the queen, I should say, and to be able to shake their hands. When they do make their way eventually, which shouldn't take too long, over to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, it actually lies at the foot of the National War Memorial and contains the remains of an unidentified soldier who had been buried near Vimy Ridge in France. This year, I think you said it before, is the 25th anniversary of the repatriation of that unknown soldier, so there is inherent significance there as well. The king and the queen will lay a wreath down to pay homage to that, and that will kind of bring to a conclusion the formal part of their visit. This is all happening just a number of minutes after the king delivered the throne speech inside the chamber, inside the Red Chamber, just a few short steps from where he is right now. The crowd cannot get enough. They are, as I said, packed in here, right into downtown Ottawa. A distinct security perimeter around it, but not too rigid to keep the king away from being able to shake all their hands.
In a moment, by the way, we should say that is important for the country and this country's history, but also significant for their monarchy as well. I mean, you know, at a time, as you know, there have been debates for decades about the monarchy's relevance. This is how the king and queen are showing their relevance, essentially saying through an act of soft diplomacy that Canada, we've got you. We're there to support you at this time when your very existence is being threatened by your southern neighbor. Not explicitly saying that, but certainly when you dissect the language and the nuance of the language in that throne speech, that's exactly what this message is. Again, those spontaneous cheers, that's exactly what this message is. And the fact that that speech, even though it's the government's message coming from the king's mouth, is all the more significant. They don't seem to be rushing, which is nice to see. They're taking their time meeting the crowds.
Yeah, Mike's point I thought was a great one. If you recall, when those threats were being levied against us, the constant references to the 51st state, we were all wondering where the king was, where is the monarchy, where is the governor general even representing the monarchy, and everyone was kind of tight-lipped. Fast forward a few months, obviously with a newly formed government in place, an election in the rearview mirror, there is a different sense now of the degree to which the monarchy is willing to say something about Canada's sovereignty, and that in fact was the case in the throne speech. I think it will have a lasting impact on Canadians who had been kind of waiting and watching and wanting this moment to happen to one degree or another.
And as I'm looking over my left shoulder, I can see their majesties make their way closer to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So really they're just steps away from where that wreath-laying ceremony will be taking place. Again, the 25th anniversary of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, containing the body of, the remains, I should say, of an unknown soldier from the Cabaret Rouge British Cemetery in the vicinity of Vimy Ridge, France. Let's get to Richard Berthelsen, who is our royal commentator. Richard, let me just get your reactions, first of all, to the speech itself. What did you make of it?
I think the speech was very careful. You have to really deconstruct throne speeches as far as the king's concerned, sort of three sections. There's sort of some personal comments at the beginning, there's the government's agenda in the vast majority of it, and there's some personal comments at the end. Of course, the comment about that this is indeed the true North, strong and free, obviously really caught those assembled in the Senate, and they broke into applause, which is not always the case with throne speeches. I will just point out, the true North, strong and free is also the words that are on the plane that is flying the king over here. So that is a very key part of our national anthem, obviously a key part of this. I mean, I think the biggest thing we can say about this whole visit has been the visuals, the crowds, and a sense of the monarchy itself in Canada being reinvented as a real bulwark against, other views about where Canada should be, and a real reinforcing of our sovereignty. So that also comes out very strongly in the speech, but it's really the visuals, the response of the crowd, and the way we perceive the institution that is really the legacy here.
Folks, you're right in the way.
And here comes King Charles and Queen Camilla. They are at the National War Memorial in downtown Ottawa at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
brought the weather with you. We had to have on those the fishing net, the fishing rigs around the tip of the screw. Before you move on, sounds the one person yeah, all around the service. Join the speech.
Straight and narrow. Make sure he delivers all right.
Yes. It means the world will deliver. Exhausted.
King Charles and the Queen about to enter their vehicles to head back to the United Kingdom after what has been a whirlwind trip here in Canada, less than 24 hours, and saying their final goodbyes at the National War Memorial, where they have just laid a wreath to mark the 25th anniversary of the tomb of the unknown soldier. Before that, the King delivering the speech from the throne, a historic speech from the throne, only the third time that has happened in this country's history.
Some crowd management going on as they get ready to, there's like a whole motorcade of vehicles behind us as they get ready to take the King and Queen to the airport. He's sticking around. They're sticking around, though, to greet almost everybody who has lined up. You know, of course, a long line of dignitaries, but also stopping to shake hands with so many people who had come out to witness the ceremony of what took place. It was nice, you know, there was lots that took place in the Senate, but it was really nice to see the part of this that took place out here.
And just observing him and the Queen, I mean, he's really taking his time to meet people who've been standing outside, some of them for hours, before the events got underway this morning, to take part in, as we said, a very historic occasion for this country. And
Abigail,
greet the couple.
Pardon me, Abigail. I was just going to say Abigail Beeman is on the ground right there where all of this is taking place. Abigail, that sort of mini Remembrance Day ceremony, you could call it. It was so much like what we do see on November 11th every year. It was quite moving.
It was. That's a great way to move it, to put it, quite moving, especially with that moment of silence where there are really hundreds, if not thousands of people here. I can't quite get a full sense of it. And to hear that silence fall over the crowd as people reflected on just what was happening. And I know you laid it out before with that wreath laying at the tomb of the unknown soldier, the 25th anniversary there to commemorate the 116,000 Canadians who have given their lives in service, and to watch that and to watch the crowd taking that moment in was very moving. We saw the king lay that wreath that was handed over to him by a retired sergeant, and then we saw the Queen place those flowers on that tomb. Going back to what you mentioned in terms of their majesties and the king especially really taking the time to meet all these people, it may seem brief, that handshake or that word from the king, but really when you think about how fast this trip was, I'm just looking at the clock, and we're not even at the 24-hour mark since the king touched down here in Ottawa. So to have the chance to meet really hundreds of Canadians, and I've been at a number of these stops over the past 24 hours, it is really remarkable. And for those people who, as you've referenced, have been waiting for hours for a chance to spot, and in a best case scenario for them to have a word with or to meet the king, is really something that will have a lasting impact on the Canadians who are here today. Something else that I'll note, as I don't think I've mentioned before in our coverage, taking in the sights and sounds from today, you can see that some of the uniforms of the people at these events still have an ER rather than a CR, so a reference to Queen Elizabeth. I spoke with a member of the Dragoons yesterday at the airport whose insignia still has ER on all of the buttons, and I asked, when is this going to be changed over, and they didn't really have an answer, but sort of just signifying that it's still relatively new, that this is the king's first visit to Canada as king, and there are still marks of his mother here. I reference it because the piper behind me had that large ER that was quite visible. So just another of the many symbols that we've been discussing throughout the course of the king's visit here, and it sounds like they've moved off that National War Memorial and will be heading in that motorcade back to the airport for the wrap-up of a quick but impactful visit to Canada. I'll send it back to you, Vassy and Omar.
As those overhead shots now show us the motorcades departing there at the National War Memorial. And what a fitting way to end this. I mean, every time I hear that bugler on Remembrance Day or on a day such as today, it really gives me chills. I mean, they're paying tribute to the men and women who've fought, who've sacrificed their blood, sweat, and tears to form what this country is. And really, that's what this visit is all about, too. It's celebrating all that makes Canada what it is, really paying tribute to its values, honoring the progress that it has made, and really fundamentally affirming the fact that it is, as the king said, Vassy, in the throne speech, the true north, strong and free.
Yep, very much. Even, as far as you're talking about the ceremony that took place, the younger girl who gave the Queen the wreath that she ultimately laid at the foot of the tomb of the unknown soldier, her father, Master Corporal Scott Francis Vernelli, paid the ultimate sacrifice during his third combat mission in Afghanistan back in 2009. He lost his life. And so even the symbolism in that, right, that she was the one there who was giving the Queen that wreath so that she could lay it at the tomb of the unknown soldier, marking 25 years since the unknown soldier was repatriated right there to the War Memorial that you are looking at head on. Afia Hagen, our royal commentator, has been watching along with us throughout this afternoon as this visit comes to a conclusion. Afia, your takeaway, like what stands out to you about what we just saw over the past few hours take place?
I mean, the visuals are always so strong when it comes to these royal visits, whether it's, the armed forces out, whether it's the pipers, that aerial shot that you had just now of the motorcade moving away from the war memorial, the tomb of the unknown soldier. And of course, it's such a beautiful day as well. These visuals are so important. The pomp and the pageantry that we see is a real reinforcement of what the monarchy is all about. And of course, it's linked to Canada. It's a real reminder for the whole world that Canada is a sovereign state. And that's really what this visit was all about. It's that power of soft diplomacy, that soft power, which really, really does a lot of good, which can be very powerful in its own way. And I think really, you know, the symbolism that we have seen over is it even 24 hours, like you've been saying, it's really a whirlwind trip, I think is so powerful. And I think for me, from the speech, you know, it really felt like King Charles was saying as much as he could say without veering into you know, a place that you shouldn't be in. You know, he didn't mention Donald Trump by name, but he did reference the, you know, the president of the United States, and talking about Canada-United States relationship, and talking about, you know, the opportunity that Canadians have to reinvent themselves, have the largest transformation of its economy since the Second World War, trying to put a positive spin, perhaps, on where the relationship with the United States has been. I think, you know, really significant that King Charles sort of went there, really felt like he was going there in that speech. But like I say, the pomp, the pageantry, all the visuals that we have are so striking from this 24-hour whirlwind visit. And I think one of probably the most significant royal visits we have had in recent years, the most impactful, the most significant, one that's come at a really crucial time.
Yeah, the context, Omar, right, that Afia points out is, I think, really important here. It's why there are so many eyeballs on this throne speech in particular, this visit from a monarch. It's the timing of it all, right? We are facing down what a year ago we would never have thought would have happened, you know, with our closest friend and ally in the United States. We've been threatened with annexation, the use of economic force, deadly tariffs, punishing tariffs, and, you know, for it to result in a moment like this. And then I'm being drowned out by the man.
I was going to say, you're doing a great job keeping your focus.
Probably
That's
for relief of money, yeah, I know, but
let's listen in for a couple of minutes and then we'll resume.
sort of symbolism, the visuals that both Richard and Althea were referencing, like from start to finish, the planning, the execution of this, it's like, it is kind of like a magical sight to behold.
And happening very rapidly. I mean, as Richard Berthelsen was telling us not too long ago, I mean, these royal visits and tours take months to plan. The fact that this happened so quickly, which was necessary in the context of what we're seeing with these, you know, the relationship with the United States, and the royal couple really making sure that they wanted to present an image of being there for Canada at this time of tension. But also, you know, back to what we were saying, this is a hugely pivotal moment for the monarchy too, right? For them to be able to demonstrate their relevance when, you know, a lot of the time people are debating, you know, whether this institution has any merit in our day and age. They showed today that in this time of so-called need, at this time of, you know, when Canada's existence is being challenged by our southern neighbor, that they're going to show up, and they're going to show up quickly to be able to show Canadians that they're able to be there. And again, I mean, we've said it over and over again, but it has been only the third time since Confederation that a monarch has delivered a speech from the throne. So absolutely significant.
He made special reference in that speech to our national identity. Our correspondent, our colleague, Rachel Aiello, was actually at the airport awaiting their arrival there, the King and Queen's arrival there, with our minister, I believe, of national identity, Stephen Guilbeault. Rachel, I'll throw it over to you.
All right, it looks like we might be having some audio issues with
she'll be there soon, yeah.
She will. No, they're just working on that. We'll join her. But as we mentioned, the royal couple leaving here from the National War Memorial and then making their way to the Ottawa Airport, Hangar 11, from where VIPs leave and eventually depart. That journey is about 25 minutes, although, you know, with some of those roads blocked, they will probably make it there between 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to take a quick break and see you on the other side in a couple of moments. Stay with us. Welcome back to our special coverage of the throne speech and the royal visit. Only the third time since Confederation that a sitting monarch has delivered the throne speech. Let's go to CTV's royal commentator, Richard Brithelson, who has been with us all morning. Richard, what were your general impressions of the throne speech when you heard it?
I felt it was a very carefully constructed speech. Obviously, it's a great privilege for the Carney government to have that speech read with all of their policy proposals. I mean, who would have thought we would have heard the king saying things like GST and all this kind of stuff? So, I mean, it was a terrific opportunity for them to get their message out from a royal voice. But I mean, it is a very carefully constructed speech. I would draw attention to the first 10 or 11 paragraphs in the speech, which are really likely coming directly from the palace. And of course, that very strong ending about the true north, indeed, the true north, strong and free. So those are the kind of touches that the king would have had. Of course, there are some very important statements in the speech about our sovereignty, our defense, and even our economic future that you can really link to the current situation. But I think the king straddled a very careful line, and the government really helped him by not asking him to say something that was more strident. Nor do I think that they would have wanted that, because this speech is really trying to look positively towards the future and not necessarily to dwell in some of the problems we've experienced in the last few months.
Are you surprised by the extent to which he did acknowledge the tensions without explicitly acknowledging the tensions with the U.S.?
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I think that is the moment we're in. That is why this visit took place, 1 month after the election. The first possible opportunity for this visit to have taken place. It couldn't have taken place any time in the last 6 months, really, with political instability in this country. And I think we also have to bear in mind, although we're focusing on that, this is also the King's first visit to Canada as sovereign, and it has been an incredibly positive start. For a very short visit, he met virtually the entire Canadian table of precedents, all the political leadership in the country in that Senate today, because he had that lovely moment to wander about while they were waiting for the MPs to come back, and then to have had the opportunity to talk to MPs on the way out. This was a really impactful visit on a personal basis. I mean, again, a lot of these people are well known to the King and the Queen, but this was an opportunity for him to really reconnect with Canada, to reset his relationship, because we haven't had these opportunities in the last few years, partly due to the pandemic, partly due to minority parliaments and everything else. So I think this has been extremely important, and I think Canadians also wanted to hear some of these messages from the King, from his own lips, and that was another critical aspect of this. The visuals have spoken extremely powerfully. Every time we've seen the armed forces, they've been in red and white. We had the RCMP. We've had a huge display, and of course, massive crowds in incredible weather. So what could go wrong? It was really a big success.
All right, CTV's Richard Brithelson, thank you so much for your analysis this morning.
Thank you.
Giving us lots really to chew on as we keep our eyes peeled. At the Ottawa airport, you can see the plane there ready to host once again, just 24 hours later, King Charles and Queen Camilla. Literally, it was at this time yesterday we were watching that plane taxi the runway, and the two of them disembarked. They packed a lot into this visit, Omar. We obviously spent the past few hours watching and witnessing what that meant as far as the throne speech and here at the War Memorial. But yesterday they spent a fair bit of time right in the heart of Ottawa talking to Canadians who had spent the morning assembling and waiting for their arrival.
Spending a lot of time with the crowds that had gathered here, some waiting for hours. And again, this is a live look at the plane there on the tarmac at Ottawa Airport outside Hangar 11, where the royal couple will be arriving shortly and then making their way back to the United Kingdom.
We're very lucky right now to be joined actually by a guest here on set with us who was front and center for the throne speech. The wonderful Mila Mulrooney is here. Mrs. Mulrooney, it's such a pleasure to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be with you.
I appreciate you making the time for the conversation. We watched you sitting next to all of the former prime ministers and people, former governors general. Tell us what it was like to be in that room.
It was a great honor. It really was a great honor. And people were almost there was a euphoria in knowing that the king was going to read the throne speech. And it had been a long time between royalty reading our speeches. So it was a great honor for me and a privilege. And saw so many good old friends and met a lot of new young senators and had a chance to talk to former governor generals and with King Charles and Queen Camilla. Had a few words, and it was just a really deep pleasure for me to be there.
Your late husband, I remember interviewing him when the Queen passed away, and the number of stories that he had involving you, and the two of you kind of, your story with the monarchy, the number of personal interactions, for example, were numerous to say the least. What does the monarchy mean to you?
Well, it's interesting because I think people always assume prime ministers and monarchs are very much at arm's length, but it wasn't the case. I think the Queen was very, very benevolent when it came to all her prime ministers and all of the world leaders, and she was very generous in a private space, and she was she was amusing, she was funny, she was well read. All those things I could say about King Charles as well. He was and is one of my favorite stories about King Charles. He was not King Charles when the story took place, but he came to play polo. He came to play polo in Florida, and I was there alone. So I went to have dinner with him and a group of people just off the polo grounds. And he was very troubled by what was going on in Romania, but with Ceausescu digging up all the graves and taking away all the history. And I was fascinated about it because, as you know, I was born in the former Yugoslavia. And so I was thinking about what would happen if this kind of thing continued in Eastern Europe. And so he said, I'll send you the book. And sure enough, he sent me the book, and he wrote me a beautiful card, which I think the archives had. Brian read it because we had Ceausescu come to visit.
Wow.
So I think it's he's got a lot of depth, intellectual depth, and he's a man of great interests and curiosity, and I think England and the Commonwealth will really benefit from that.
After the Queen passed away, your husband told me and was speaking to me about the role the Queen played in so-called soft diplomacy, right? Your husband was very much involved with other countries rallying against apartheid South Africa.
Yes.
And this is a role that the Queen herself took actively, even though the role itself, Ms. Verney, is not it's not a political role,
Yes.
right? Talk to me about some of the parallels of that soft diplomacy in what the Queen did and what the King did here today.
Well, that's a very interesting comparison. I think, people assume that the throne speech is written by the government of the day, which it is. But I think you felt the King's presence through it all. And this is a king who understands the complexity of the world right now. And in some ways, it was an olive branch. In other ways, it was a bit of a hammer. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. But I think he's up to the challenge, and I think I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to overcome everything that's thrown at us.
It was a delicate balance, and such a stunning moment of national unity. I think it was at your late husband's funeral at Notre Dame that we saw this tremendous gathering of politicians from various party lines coming together in one space, and we saw that again today in the Senate.
Yes. Well, I think that also Brian was a man who admired public service on every level, and he respected people who took a stand. He had issues with people who couldn't make up their mind, and I think King Charles today took a stand, and he is the head of the Commonwealth. It's a very volatile world right now, especially in Africa, and he's going to do a fabulous job. I think I think he knows what he needs to do as the leader. And look, everybody, I believe in working together and making it all work. And I hope our Prime Minister will do the same.
If your husband were here today, I mean, he had such a close relationship with your family did with Ronald Reagan. What do you think he would say about the current state of affairs between Canada and the U.S.?
You know, I couldn't tell you because the language would be a little foul. Although he was a very nice Catholic boy, he had his moments. But I do think that he would work across all party lines, and he would work across all languages, barriers, and as many of the groups that we belong to, whether it's NATO or NORAD or the United Nations. And he was a man that believed that consensus and teamwork was absolutely essential.
It's the King's first visit here as sovereign at the 20th.
Yes.
20th visit to Canada. I know you saw the crowds that had assembled here. Like, it was jam-packed. There is a huge crowd that came out to see the King both today and even yesterday, the King and the Queen, I should say. What do you think that says about the relevance of the monarchy in Canada right now, or even just about this moment for Canadians?
I believe that the monarchy is going to be around long after all of us are gone. I think it has a very important role to play, and I think people love pomp and ceremony. They need to celebrate something. They need to feel as a part of something, and having them come out and be, you know, cheek by jowl with the King of England and his Queen, I think just gave people the feeling that Canada was an important place in the minds of the world. And I was very happy to see it, and I'm so grateful for the weather.
Right?
Isn't it beautiful?
Yes, it's a stunning day. Did you feel that in the room as well?
Yes, yes, we did. And I mean, it was beautifully orchestrated. We got to shake hands with them. We got to talk with them. It was lovely. It was well done.
Well, I appreciate you making the time to come see us after all of it. It's such a pleasure to see you, Mrs. Mulroney. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
And there's the King and the Queen as they kind of make their final way through the tarmac, heading on to, they will eventually head on to the plane that will take them back to England. We've said it before, it's just 24 hours, Omar, a very quick trip. And Rachel Aiello is actually on the ground there, on the tarmac, I should say, to be more specific. Rachel, over to you.
Dignitaries and the Prime Minister come to and from this country. And we're watching behind me here, King Charles and Queen Camilla get ready to head back to the UK, wrapping up a whirlwind, just around 24-hour visit to this country. Now, what they're calling this here is an administrative departure. So there is no interaction with the public at this departure, but they are being met by 25 members of the Royal Canadian Dragoons, 2 members of the RCMP, as well as Canada's Minister for Canadian Identity and Culture, Stephen Guilbeault, who you might have caught me standing beside not too long ago. Sorry for that. This is really the end of quite a historic trip, as the King said in his speech from the throne, his 20th visit to this country, but his first as sovereign. Vassy?
Yeah, still lots of ceremony taking place there, Omar, on the tarmac. Rachel, thank you so much.
And this, by the way, is what they call an administrative goodbye.
I don't want to know what the real thing looks like.
This is a low-key goodbye, as they call it. But,
once again, shaking the hands, though, of everyone who has assembled, particularly members of law enforcement, in the case of down here at the War Memorial, the RCMP, the members of the military, the various dignitaries. Like, they stopped and shook hands with each and every one of them.
Certainly taking their time, and this goes back to what we were saying earlier. I mean, this is a pivotal moment for the monarchy to be able to prove its relevance, but also for this country's history. And it was interesting what Ms. Mulroney was saying to us moments ago about how the King struck this balance between the personal, right, acknowledging the previous visits that his mom had here and sort of why he was here, essentially, while at the same time delivering what throne speeches are meant to deliver, which is the government's message, which was basically, part 2 of this speech.
Yeah, and I think she reflected what sort of the bipartisan nature of the group who had assembled inside the Senate must have been thinking, right? Like this is a highly charged time politically, but at the same time, this threat from the U.S. has created a unique moment in time for our country. And you pointed to this earlier and even referenced it with the funeral, right? The last time we saw all of these politicians from different political parties come together was to recognize the loss and pay respect to the former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, of Mila Mulroney's husband. And now we see them back here together to show, kind of like in a show of strength, right? A show of, hey, we are about something, and this is part of that something, delivered through the throne speech, delivered through the most amazing visuals that we have witnessed over the last 24 hours, and continue to right until this last very moment when the King and Queen will get on that plane.
And as we watch them get on that plane, quick final thoughts from a couple of our guests. Let's go to Athea Hagan right now, who is in London, where the King and Queen are heading momentarily. Did the King, Athea, very quickly come here and do what he had to do?
Yes, he did. He came here and reaffirmed his place on the global stage. He came here, reminded everybody that he is the monarch, that Canada is a sovereign country, and he was so well received by the Canadian people, and that was really key as well. So this will be a success for him, absolutely.
All right, Athea, thank you for being part of our coverage this morning. And Richard Berthelsen, our royal commentator, how will this trip be remembered, Richard?
I think it's going to be remembered as a trip at a great moment of drama and tension for this country that was sort of diffused a little bit by the sense of people showing up in a great sense of unity and a strong sense of identity. It was his 20th visit. He's probably got more visits behind him than ahead, but it won't be the last, and it was a very strong start for his first visit as King of Canada, and we'll look forward to, I think, seeing him on these shores in the not-too-distant future. I'm sure the success of this visit will let the Prime Minister and his government know that there's ways the King can be helpful to us and useful to us in Canada in the future, and I think we'll look forward to that in the years ahead.
I think we have just a few seconds left. Yeah, I would love to get our strategist thoughts, but I'll save that for power play and for question period this week. I guess what I'm left with, we just have a few seconds left, are these images. Like Richard points out, at a time of great strain on this country, great worry and great anxiety, it was magical to witness. It was, I don't know, it was kind of cool. I don't know what other way to describe it.
That's
Feels like you're watching a
it.
key piece of history unfold live before our eyes.
Especially given how rare it is, right? I mean, the fact that the couple came here for fewer than 24 hours, and also the reception that they received, right? From the crowds that were gathered here for hours, some of them. You will have much more on Power Play this evening, and I'll have more on CTV National News tonight. Thank you for joining our special coverage of this historic throne speech. We'll see you later.
It is with a deep sense of pride and pleasure that my wife and I join you here today as we witness Canadians coming together in a renewed sense of national pride, unity, and hope. As the anthem reminds us, the true North is indeed strong and free.